Welcome to the Live Fully podcast. I'm your host, Victor, and with me is fellow co-founder Alexander. Morning, Alex.
Good morning.
And as always, we have our producer, Nicole, in the room.
Good morning.
One day she'll show her face. I tried this week because we had conflict. You were stuck in Big Bear.
Yes.
Because of the snow. And so we were supposed to, we normally
finally got snow in Big Bear.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's so weird because it's end of January. Yeah, end of January,
Mm-hmm.
and very little snow going up into Big Bear, and plus they had the fire like earlier, like several months ago, that closed it down for a while. So it's kind of like sad seeing that coming on the way out. So hopefully, they get more snow, kind of get recovered a little bit.
Nice. How much do you think came down? Was it a lot?
Not too much, maybe like 4 inches around where we were. Probably the top of the mountain probably got maybe up to 8 inches, but there was some more snow coming in as we were leaving yesterday. So at least, hopefully it was more, but not a terrible amount.
So I tried to convince Nicole to like, all right, you and me, we got this. Nope, it's not happening. I got to come up with some sort of incentive. I think you do great, by the way.
Thank you.
You can't do any worse than us.
Appreciate it.
All right, let's see. I'm looking at the notes here. Today, we are going to talk about the John Hopkins Kratom research. There's several research pieces. I'm assuming we're talking about the driving one.
The one that's actually been published.
The one that's been published,
There's a recruitment study going on for people to participate in more research. There's a lot of research that they're conducting.
Yeah.
This is finally... was published. So we heard a little bit about it. We kind of gave some previews back when we were down in San Diego going to Sebastian Guthrie's Kratom court case.
Yeah.
And so we gave some initial, we got some initial preview of that during that time when we were kind of doing the meetings with some of the researchers that were there testifying. But now they finally published. So.
Yeah, I missed out on that one. Dr. Smith presented the research. Did she also present the I guess we'll go into it. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, so we're gonna try to deep dive the research a bit. I'm sure if you're in the Kratom space and you're a fan of this podcast, you've heard of this research, but we'll give you some of the details behind it all. I think it's really interesting stuff. This doesn't happen often that we get like a Kratom specific published research with humans.
Yeah. So this is the interesting part is that, we've talked about Kratom research for many years now, and a lot of it's been animal mice studies, and then also our own like personal experiences mixed in with consumer kind of survey results. And so now they're finally bridging the gap. The researchers are finally bridging the gap and getting human clinical trials done. So and a lot of the information coming out is kind of like what we expect, because we kind of have the animal studies, the pharmacokinetic effects, then we have the survey results, we have our own personal experience. We're like, hey, this has to be true, right? And so we get a lot of really good now clinical trials are kind of just filling in those gaps officially. Yeah,
it's great. I really wanted to participate in this one in particular because it's driving related. I always wanted to get in one of those
driving reaction like simulators. Yeah. Have you seen photos of what they look like? And like, no. It's like a super sterile environment, and it's kind of like, like they do get data out of it that is objective and correlates to what we would see. So, but it's not nearly as cool as like the Formula One driving car.
That's what I mean. Because
that's where like I was able to go down to an event down in Mexico City with Danny Way, and this was Gamergy.
Gamergy, that's right.
So this was kind of the mix between sports and esports, and they had a huge Formula One esports setup. And the full kind of driving simulators where you get into like the race car tucked position where you're on the kind of like on your back and kind of like in that 0G position with the car. So like that is awesome driving simulator. Yeah. The ones for this lab are not nearly as cool. Not nearly as cool. And the graphics are pretty plain and mundane and kind of like very basic. So it's really is just like clinical.
No Gran Turismo.
It's not. Yeah, it's not.
That's in my mind. I'm like, we're playing Gran Turismo, right? Let's go. You want to see my reaction time? Let's go in Laguna Seca. Let's do this.
But I wonder, like, it'd be interesting to see if you put somebody in the current clinical kind of driving simulator, because like I would assume too that kind of like anything that we find in like a lot of psychological testing is that when you're put in those situations, you behave differently because it's like, I'm being observed and being watched. I wonder if you put somebody in a driving simulator that is more like a game, would a different driving behavior come out? And would you learn more like from that?
Yeah. I remember when I was, getting my, I went to driver's school as a 16, 17-year-old. And part of it was we had like a steering wheel, and they had a video playing, but it was like real live video.
Oh, interesting.
So it wasn't 3D graphics or anything, like it wasn't any of that kind of stuff. And it's like simulating us driving, and then all of a sudden a person, like you're at a gas station and then you're pouring gas, and then the person walks in front of you, and you're not supposed to like press on the gas as it's happening and stuff. Anyway, but it's so different. And like I just felt so removed from the whole thing.
Sure. Yeah.
That I was like not,
because
I failed that miserably.
Sure.
I ran over. It said like you hit 3 people, and I was like, what's going on here? Like,
well, next time I'm driving like this, like just can't see out of my side.
I was like, that's I couldn't see the person come, whatever. But it was just like it wasn't real. Even though they're using real footage. But then, whenever I get into like real simulator stuff, I mean,
yeah,
I crushed that. But then again, I'm a gamer, so as I'm wearing my Mario, I didn't know we're doing a podcast today, so I just came in and she's like, "Are you ready to go?" I'm like, "Oh, great. What am I wearing today?" This
Mario.
is
Mario
very
85.
So you got the Ether thing going.
I always have Ether things going.
I know.
It's like my only wardrobe. I just have T-shirts and Ether swag.
We need more Ether swag.
That'd be nice.
I would rock it for sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we can just buy it. We make it. All right. We don't take care of ourselves. We're like the shoemaker, his kids have the worst, whatever the saying is. All right, let's get into the research, and then we'll also talk
industry
about
updates.
Yeah, we have some industry updates. I do want to talk about your thing going, like you're leaving tomorrow. If you don't mind talking about it.
Yeah, there's it's a continuing education class. So this is for medical professionals about learning about Kratom. And this is at Tulane University, which is amazing because I have an aunt and uncle and some cousins that live in New Orleans. My uncle actually teaches an entrepreneur class at Tulane University.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I mean, they live, right across the street, essentially. So it's a great location. New Orleans is a really fascinating city, just in general. I mean, I know you're from Louisiana, so you have some of the history back there.
The real LA.
Well, I mean, part of what I love about New Orleans is just that it was a vibrant founding city before the U.S. was a country. And so it has some really cool history that just goes even further back than like our country's history. And there's this like the median, so the kind of like strip of grass between roads, the median, that was invented in New Orleans.
Really?
Because it was first established by both Britain and the French, and they had different areas. So the French Quarter was where all the French were. The gardens were like the British Garden District of where the British colonized. And so the only way, because like they were essentially like frenemies, like they were both warring countries and also kind of they needed to trade with each other. So they established this median. Fought a war. They and so
many times.
And the only way they would trade with each other was they created a median, like a common zone between the roads, so they could trade in those median areas, and that's how they like traded because they were still
like
technically
the demilitarized
enemies.
zone.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. That was how they created the median, and that's where they get that from.
Wow, you learned something new. That's wild. Now our medians are like too tiny. Like, how do you trade?
Like, you can't trade in those things. Like,
come on. You just use it so that you can, jaywalk. That's all I use it for. Yeah. So yeah, you're going to Tulane.
Yep.
And how long is it? How long is the thing? Is it 1 day?
I think it's only like 4 hours.
Oh, okay.
It's like a half day essentially. So yeah, I'll be interested to kind of see like some of like Chris McCurdy will be presenting, maybe Kirsten Smith, but I don't know if it's
research right now.
I don't know if it's my guess is probably gonna be a virtual presentation. I would assume just for like a 4-hour meeting. It's kind of hard for them to come out for such a short amount of time for how valuable their time and research is. My guess, but I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I'm just really interested. Show up. That'd be nice if somebody shows up.
It would be amazing. I'm just interested to see as well how other, say, professionals that maybe they're hearing about Kratom for the first time, what is that kind of sediment happening? Because, we've been Kratom advocates for almost a decade now coming up. And so we're very biased on how amazing it is and that story. And so I'm curious to see what the actual, perception of Kratom is from a, say, new person's eyes. Like if they're just coming into it, what's their take on it?
Yeah. But then again, they're choosing to go into this class. So I'd imagine most are going to be leaning towards, being in favor of Kratom, wanting to incorporate it in some sort of, maybe professional part of their lives. But you never know, they might have some haters in there. That'd be great. Break them down, Alex. Just get up there, just start presenting. Feel like, Chris, I got this.
Yeah, exactly. Let me just regurgitate your own research back to you.
It. I got this. Hello, ladies. No, okay, so that'll be fun. And you get to spend time with your family, which is cool.
Yeah, exactly.
In an awesome city. Yeah. I was just there, I want to say last year, but I think it was probably like 3 years ago. God, time flies.
Wow.
For my brother's bachelor party.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was
very
a while ago
different
now.
than going for a Kratom symposium.
It is. I mean, yeah, Bourbon Street is fascinating, or just the whole French Quarter, just because you have such eclectic establishments. I mean, everything from some of like the oldest bars in the nation to family friendly event places to normal, like it's just like it's such a like right next to like a brothel essentially, to like it's just like just random places all mashed together.
Really mashed together, like
so like some of the best like street music and busker performances you can find.
That's
like
right.
it's a really cool, like that's one part that I really appreciate about New Orleans as well, is just the street performances. Like that's just that passion for like art and like that celebration is a really cool aspect to the culture of that city.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Yeah. All right, well, I hope you get a chance to like get out there, not just to Tulane, but get out and have some fun.
Yeah, we'll get some like
it'd be good
stuff going.
Report back.
Yes.
All
We
right.
actually had snow like a couple weeks ago or last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
The first time in like a long time. Like they do not get snow very often.
Yeah, I was born in Louisiana, Houma, Louisiana, which is not New Orleans. And the whole time I was there, one day, just snowed one day, and we all like lost our minds. Because it's just like, what is this stuff? We freaked out, school closed, everything. It was wild. It was really awesome. But San Diego isn't much different. I don't think sleet, I guess. We get some ice once in a while. That's about it here. At least here, obviously in Big Bear, you can
the
snow.
Mountains, yes, we get some great snow up in the mountains.
Okay, let's get into this, because I did, I missed Dr. Smith's presentation when we were at the event, and I had to step out, so I just caught the beginning, and I literally caught it in the end when she's like, "And that's the research." I was like, "Dang it." I did get a chance to read through it, but I didn't get to go in depth with it, so I'm curious to hear your breakdown of it and get the nitty-gritty. I mean, I know the findings and all that, and it all is very encouraging, nothing surprising, but we'll get into it. Let's go.
Yeah, so Kirsten Smith is doing research on Kratom consumers, and so these are people who have been using Kratom, which is kind of to your point, it's like they've self-selected. I am a current Kratom user. I've been using it for a while. I know how it affects me. So we got to keep that in mind too, that these are people that have established, say, more or less like a routine with Kratom. So that is something to note, that if this is the first time you ever tried Kratom, like learn how your body responds to it. Don't just assume you're going to react the same way to this, because these are seasoned consumers just like ourselves that figured out our dose, figured out how it affects us, and we kind of incorporate it into our healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, it was like regular Kratom users that used at least 3 times a week, or maybe 3 times a day, 4 times a week, something like that. Yeah, it wasn't like you had to use Kratom every single day, right? But it had to be a regular amount.
But I would say, like I would classify them as regular Kratom consumers.
Yeah.
And the research she was doing, at least when she presented back when we were down in San Diego, is that they have there's an app that they'll use and kind of ping people throughout the day. So this was one set of research, was that, how do people use Kratom? What are their habits? What are they doing? How does it incorporate into their lifestyle? And some of that research was showing that, okay, these are people that are using Kratom. It's helping them meet the obligations of their day. They're using Kratom typically more early in the morning, afternoon, doing their work, doing their, other chores, what they need to do. Yeah. And then they don't see any other kind of major signals that would be a negative effect, which would be kind of like binge usage. So like, alcohol or other illicit drugs, you'll see binge usage. People start to use it really late at night when they're tired and kind of not making good decisions, essentially. But we don't see those issues.
Nothing good happens after 1 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That kind of is true in a lot of ways. And so this one now is another similar study, but now more focused on driving habits. And so something like, I guess, 395 people were admitted into it for like the survey results. So these are kind of people using an app to kind of basically throughout their driving, they'll report, how do I drive? Do I feel like I'm driving better after using Kratom? Do I feel impaired? What's kind of my consensus on that? And so from the self-reporting, people for the most part say that, well, if I use Kratom, I can drive well, I don't feel impaired, I'm doing okay. And so that's just kind of
surprise. Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, like, and so it's good to have that, but we also want to then back that up with any kind of actual driving simulators. Because I mean, the problem with alcohol is that people think they're not impaired, or they think they're right. And like, and that's kind of one of the problems that, like, okay, just because people have that reporting doesn't mean it's actually true.
Yeah.
Right? But fortunately, they did bring in people into a clinical lab doing a driving simulator. I think they only said like 10 people they brought in. And they would look at everything from, say, lane deviation, kind of like they're just driving. How are they like swerving more? Because, you get that with alcohol or other impairments. People think they're driving well, but they're actually going in and out of the lanes more. Reaction time, like they'll have like a crash avoidance. So, to your point, they'll have kind of simulated just typical city driving stop signs, and they'll kind of look at did people miss anything or stoplights. They have like a reaction time. And the summary from the research is essentially that there's no clinical significant issues that point to people who regularly use Kratom, regularly use their normal amount, do not show any degradation in their driving abilities. So people don't think they're impaired. They also don't show any signs of being impaired on driving simulators.
Yeah. I mean, that's wonderful news. When I first heard it, I was like, yeah, well, duh. I literally use Kratom when I have long drives because I know I'm a better driver. I'm more alert. I have better reaction time.
Yes.
I'm more present.
And I'd also say that even with super high doses of Kratom, when I say I've consumed too much, I'm like, oh God, I'm a little bit nauseous. Like, I don't really like this feeling. It's not, I've never felt, say, out of control, like, where, I mean, there's times where I've drank like alcohol and like I went through that kind of exploration in life.
Wildly different.
I drank too much alcohol and I'm like, okay, I can't function. Like I know things are like horrible when I've gone that much.
Like this is going to be I should not be operating anything. I shouldn't be putting my life in danger.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and I remember too, like Joe Rogan, he's had a little bit of Kratom usage. Unfortunately, he kind of went hardcore into it, taking like 12 capsules or something insane amount, just way too much for a first time user, especially like for probably too much for anyone, let alone a first time user. Yeah. But I remember him even saying this was like the first time he used it. He consumed way too much. He was stupid in doing it. But yet he said, but I still had all my motor skills and reaction ability. I didn't feel like impaired that I couldn't walk, couldn't function, or couldn't do anything. Like, I kind of felt like loopy and not really pleasant, but it wasn't like I felt out of control, like I couldn't move my body in like ways I wanted to. So even at super high doses, doesn't seem to be a super detriment to impairment on kind of that. So I would assume then, if we're using Kratom in a proper, safe way, just for what we want it to, we shouldn't see a reaction speed difference or shouldn't see a degradation in driving.
Yeah, and the study supports your thoughts on it. Yeah, I just recently, I unfortunately I took way too much Kratom accidentally because, like one of these tubes that we have here, one of our silicone jars, I have different Kratom in it. And I thought it was one thing and it was another. So instead of our regular Kratom mints, it was our 7th hour
super mints.
Super mints.
Okay. So instead of like 14 milligrams, or instead of 40 milligrams of mitragynine, it was 115 milligrams. It's a very large amount.
I was really tired, and I was end of the day, and I was going to go home. I had to pick up the boys and all the usual routine, but it was going to be a long afternoon, evening. So I was like, I was really tired already from work. So I'm like, okay. Normally I just take 1 mint. I'm like, I'm going to do 2. So I was like, I'm going to do 2. This is going to be a little bit more than usual, but I need it. So, okay. and I took both. So now I'm at, 230 now, 230 milligrams of mitragynine. And
that's a lot.
And it was way too much for me. And I use Kratom literally every day.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what you're talking about. What I felt first was like, I got a headache actually from it. And I'm prone to migraines, so maybe I'm more sensitive to headaches and those kinds of things. So I had that, and then I had nausea. Like I just felt like my stomach was churning and getting like tight, and like almost like I'm about to have diarrhea or something like not diarrhea, like constipation, like cramps.
Okay.
And so I had that and headache, but I still was able to pick up my boys, and I just told them like, hey guys, just like don't talk right now because I have a headache. I'm sensitive to all this right now, but I got through it.
Yeah,
I got through it. It was really uncomfortable, and I hated the experience. But my motor skills perhaps were slightly impaired, but not to the point where I was like
in danger.
Yeah, I need to call. Hey, Lise, you need to pick up the boys because I'm out.
Yeah. So. I mean, and that could be some of like the thought is because mitragynine interacts with multiple opioid receptors. So there's actually 3 opioid receptors, the mu, kappa, and delta. The mu is what is typically associated with kind of the pain relief or the analgesic effect. Some of that does have kind of the maybe boost in mood or the euphoric effect if it's certain opioids. Kratom doesn't really show that same euphoric sensation as much, but also what happens is mitragynine interacts with the kappa opioid receptor that's kind of associated with dysphoria, so the unpleasant feeling. So that's where Kratom kind of has some of that self-regulation. If you just keep taking too much of it, that dysphoria, unpleasant feeling sets in. So you're like, well, I don't want to do this again. So that's kind of the nice self-regulating feature of Kratom is kind of what it points to.
Yeah, I definitely felt that.
Yeah.
Dysphoria, you call it. It just felt like shit is what I felt like. All right. Okay, so some of the data, I actually found it unique because it is a small sample size on the simulation, only 10 people, right? Sure. And I noticed that, but just looking at it, that either folks had very little difference in these different like reaction times for like stop sign lights.
Yeah, right? Like a stoplight, reaction speed.
Yeah, all that collision avoidance. But I'm noticing more folks are actually improving in a slight improvement. There's only maybe like 1 or 2 people that had like that. I think skewed the data so that it becomes more
I think
neutral.
Like one person kind of showed a longer reaction time coming to a stoplight. Other people seem to improve. I mean, it's hard to tell because the standard deviation on such a small sample size, and then just kind of that reproducibility. Like, is it like it's. You really want to look at somebody driving for longer than I think 15 minutes or how long they did. So it's a small sample size, and so it's hard to say that it is improving. But yeah, I mean, to untrained professionals, when you see like, oh well, those look like they kind of improved. Like I know it's like technically within standard deviation that there's no change in baseline, but it kind of looks like almost like improvement. And
but at least
I wonder,
it makes me want to do more. Let's dive deep into this and let's see if we can. This is something that is replicatable. This isn't difficult to, well, I shouldn't say that. I'm not Dr. Smith, if you're listening to this, I really appreciate what you're doing. With the right amount of funding and time, we can do this again. And I'm sure you would want to. They're actually doing another study right now, or gathering participants, and I've put my hat in because I really wanted to be in this one. Missed out, but I'm hoping to be in the next one. I don't know any of the details of it. I think it's intentional to kind of keep participants in the dark a bit. Yeah. But I know it does involve being at Johns Hopkins in Maryland for multiple days. So something about.
But I mean, I guess, and that's a question like kind of on this, right? Like it's because these are Kratom consumers self-selected that, hey, I use Kratom on a regular basis. So I obviously assume it's safe. I want it to be safe. And now you're going to test me driving pre-Kratom like usage and post. I mean, how do you account for just the ability of like, okay, well now I'm going to focus, make sure I do really well on this versus, I don't know,
gaming the study. Yeah. When I was in college, I had to do a lot of these studies. I was doing studying psychology and sociology. And so we put people through simulations and things like that. And yeah, one of the hardest things to do is to remove folks wanting to skew the data in whatever way they felt was favorable.
Right. Don't they usually give placebos though? Like they would give, both times actually give them something and not tell them which one, and then say, all right, go drive.
Yeah. I don't think that was part of the study.
I don't think they did. A placebo-controlled group of here, take this Kratom like beverage and see. But that'd be interesting to try it because then I'd love to see that.
Yeah. Sometimes we would give folks fake or misleading goals of the study. Yeah. And then so like that's another way of kind of, we're trying to study this, B, but we're actually studying A, and then seeing that by giving different goals, does it affect? Yeah.
Well, there's a bunch of ways. Yeah, there's that famous one that gets quoted a lot where it was essentially they were trying to test how people follow authority or what it takes to follow authority. Yeah. And so like what they did is though the whole ruse of the experiment was telling people that, okay, you're going to come in here and we want to test if giving somebody a negative electric shock would help them learn better. So they thought they were testing just electric shock on this person, and they thought the person in this room was being tested, and that was the goal of the study.
You're the actual guinea pig.
In the actuality, it was the person who was administering the test was the test subject, because they would essentially kind of increase the voltage and to the point.
How far will they go?
Yeah, and so it was kind of like, and so the whole experiment was having somebody like sit there and they would have to read a question. If the person got it wrong, they would press a button and they would shock the person. Yeah. Though there was no person actually being shocked. They didn't know that, but it was an actor. They had this like screaming going on, and every time the person was like, "Should I go on? The experiment must continue." It was just like a simple line of having somebody in a white coat with like a clipboard saying the experiment must continue, and that was enough to get like 70 or 80% of the people to get to the point where they were pressing an electric shock button. The person on the other end was no longer responding, so like they'd probably passed out, or like the to that point of like where they thought it was like, oh, now I'm just like killing this person, but they were still willing to, just because someone in a white coat was saying like, please continue. It was like, oh man, it's that little bit of authority is dangerous. But that's why we have to kind of be a little more cognizant of that natural behavior, that we all have biases, we all have human biology that is somewhat of a disservice depending on the situation. And if we don't just realize that and try to account for it, it's easy to go down those traps. Like it's
we
really
have survived. It's part of our survival. Yeah, that we have to get along with each other and be compliant, because we all need to work together, because that's how we survive. But then being a little oppositional defiant is okay. I say.
Yeah, I was listening to it, like it's called like maladapted genetic behaviors. So essentially it's something that in our previous evolutionary path was something that was very good for us, but now since we've changed so much in society, our world is so much different than it was 10,000 years ago, as an example, that now what was once keeping us alive 10,000 years ago is now maladapted and kind of hurting us or harming us in the current present.
That's a good one. Send that to me.
Rogan's new podcast with Dr. Sad.
The Sad Truth.
Yeah,
Syed.
exactly.
Syed. Yeah, I love him. Yeah. I've taken some of his suggestions and advice and research into my own life. I don't get into it all, but I think he's amazing. And he definitely fights the system and fighting the what does he call it, the mind virus.
Because because he was actually bringing up the point which we've talked a little bit about before and others have brought up, that unfortunately when we talk about published research, a lot of times what happens is that if a hypothesis is not supported or disproven, there's kind of like, which is like a null set of research. So if you say like, hey, I think this affects something, and the research turns out to be like, okay, though that was actually no effect, that research typically does not get published. And so there's kind of this bias of only research that shows an effect gets published. But in essence, though, you're missing out on all this information that kind of, when you want to, because when you want to do a meta-analysis, it's kind of like, and we kind of see this with Kratom, where there's been no published research on liver toxicity, because all of that data shows, well, there's no, so unless you're really looking for it now, you'll kind of do like a meta-analysis, and some of these meta-analysis articles will pick up saying, oh, well, kratom shows liver toxicity. I was like, well, there's only 3 cases that showed that, but that's because there was no published research of the thousands or millions of people that had no effect on it. And so that's where this meta-analysis can skew results and kind of leave out all this data where the data shows no result, but that's still data showing something that can be, you know, summarized in a way.
Yeah, that's why I love that they use this app for this research, because, you know, today we just have so much more technology.
Yes, to be able to collect all that information.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you can have an Aura ring on, you know, and collect a bunch of data from users, you know, without having to. Shout out to Aura if you guys want to sponsor this podcast. That'd be great. You're actually wearing one. So, great way that you can incorporate millions of people in a study, right?
It'd be really fascinating to see, things like Aura Ring be used in a lot of clinical trials. Because to your point, it's like the only way they get a lot of this data is having 10 participants come into a lab, get this biometric data, where it's like, well, we can give out hundreds of rings and get tons of data coming in. So it'd be cool to see that go into in a really nice direction.
Yeah, when I do remember talking to Dr. Smith about this research and, you know, why we didn't expand more, why, you know, and all this. It's just like, it's funding.
It's expensive.
It's expensive. You know how expensive this is? It's the researchers that you have to pay for all the people, the staff, and all of it. It's not just getting you to go there. There's a whole system that's involved. So adding another day, another element to the study would be costly. And then she's like, you guys can definitely donate. So like, we're there for you. Anything else we want to talk about? I know we're running out of time.
I mean, I think just other industry news. I mean, there's definitely bans that are trying to pop up. So I know North Dakota voted against a kratom ban. And so fortunately, they're going towards Kratom Consumer Protection Act.
Nice.
There's been some information.
Shout out to North Dakota. Good job, guys. And
Illinois,
I'm sure the AKA was involved.
Yeah, of course. AKA's been doing a great job.
So
AKA
good job,
has
AKA.
been
Thank you, guys.
very much involved in that. And so I know Illinois is coming up with a lot of hearings that have been going on, kind of similar type arguments of kind of just legislators hearing about some of the old misinformation, not really being educated on current kratom consumption habits and what people are really using it for. So if you have a kratom story out there, please share. If you hear about this and you're in those areas, talk to the representatives, go out to the hearings if you can, or kind of tell your story. It's really what really drives.
It makes a difference.
Yeah,
100%
industry going. It's the only reason that we found out about it, only reason it's available to us now, and it's really we can incorporate it into our lives.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure you'll probably get out there. You can go back to the old neck of the woods and
like I think it was Batavia, which was like they were having a hearing last night, and I mean Batavia is like right next door to where I grew up in St. Charles. And so we used to definitely play them as far as like high school. Like we would play them as part of our, soccer rivals. And we definitely,
I should have went out.
Definitely.
You're so busy.
I know.
You're literally traveling tomorrow. It's like, and then we got another thing a week after that. So for a whole week.
Yep.
Yeah. So we'll talk more about that on maybe the next podcast. Anything else? Outside of kratom, we got to talk about any other health tips. What are you drinking, by the way? What's this thing?
This one is it's a green drink. So this is kind of
the same green drink.
Yeah. So it's kind of a live it up, very similar to probably athletic greens, all sorts. I did put heavy cream in it this morning.
That's why I'm like, why is it whiter?
And so my morning routine, going to the gym early, which is so much better. So I just look for so I got to get up and I'm just gonna go to the gym. Like, cool, all right, sweet. So it's letting me that's kind of my my technique is how do I encourage myself to wake up is find something first early in the morning that I'm excited about, and that's so much easier. So I like that part, and then go to the steam room, super hot steam room today, which is out of control hot, which is awesome. And then
it varies. I thought that was supposed to be consistent.
It varies based on the 24-hour that I go to. So this one up here in Carlsbad has been really nice and hot and consistent. I tried a couple days ago. I tried to go to one down in Balboa, and that was just barely warm. I'm like, this is cold. And it's so I was like, maybe I'll go to the sauna. Maybe that one's hotter. I'm like, kind of, no, okay. So I kind of want it nice and really hot to get those heat shock proteins going.
That's the whole point of it.
You make it harder to meditate sitting there. I just gotta get through this.
Oh, it's torturous. I hate it. Yeah. I don't know what's worse, that or cold plunge.
I think cold plunge is worse. That just takes even once I come out of the sauna where I'm super hot, can't stand it, and it takes so much effort for me to just go over to the shower and turn on a cold shower and kind of get partially it's so much more effort.
Really?
Or
I think maybe because I've been doing it so long now that
maybe
that I'm the thought of,
I think your body adapts to it. Like anything, like that's the hard,
The sauna to me is just like, oh, I just do not. I've only done it with you, really, honestly. And
see, for me, sauna is like great. It's probably because I've been doing it. It's like, and that's the thing, like humans, and that's what's. I mean, kind of going back.
You just like blow on your skin, and I'm like, oh my god, it's on fire! Why would you make me do this?
But I mean, but that goes back to like, it's one of the best things humans. It's allowed us to survive. That humans can put up with some of the most treacherous, horrible situations.
We're literally killing ourselves.
Yeah, but then at the same time, we could also stay stuck in a life where like I'm sad and feel helpless. When it's like, well, no, I'm actually choosing this. I could choose to do something different. And so it's like, it's that thing that allowed us to adapt and survive can also kind of keep us stuck in a place that we're not happy with. And so like, that's what I found myself personally, at least, is that. Yeah, why am I doing this when I don't need to be doing this? I just think I do. So it's a weird how adaptable humans are, even to horrible environments, which can be good, but that can also be bad where we adapt to a horrible environment and think we have to stay there.
Yeah. There's so much to be said about that. Anything else we want to talk about? We're doing a new stretch. We're so incorporating Nicole here a little bit. Nicole and I suffer from a similar chronic hip issue. And
what's the stretch?
I don't. What's the best way to describe it? I don't know how to
explain it.
Are you trying to stretch the hip flexor, I assume?
Yes. Like, I mean, you can demonstrate. It's one of those things you want to just like show people, and the versus verbally
so like,
tell.
One of them's like a deep lunge, I would say.
Yeah.
Like,
so like
kind of and then the other one you lay down and then kind of just like pull open. Like push one and pull.
Because like one that I know about that Mark. So Mark Bell gave me kind of like a tip on one that I do where, to your point, it's like a deep lunge. So like one leg is like knees bent at a 90 degree, like 1 foot flat on the floor. Your other knee is on the ground. And you're trying to kind of like push your hips forward, right? Stretch the hip flexor. So like that's what I used to do.
Yes.
And then Mark gave me the technique where if the leg that has the knee on the ground, because that's the side you're trying to stretch hip flexor, if you then pick your foot up on something like elevated, that gets even deeper. Or you can put it up like against a wall, and that I like incorporating now too, because that helps stretch. So like when it's really tight, I kind of just do that normal stretch. But now that I've been doing it more and like kettlebells and kind of like a little bit it's looser, I've now tried to progress into like getting that leg on the ground. That's
level 2.
So try to incorporate that, because that was a great thing that Mark Bell taught me about. And I was like, I love this.
Shout out to Mark Bell. And Chris Bell. The Bell brothers. You guys are awesome. Okay. That's it. Cool. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, you guys. Hope you got something out of this. If you want more of these kind of podcast episodes where we break down some of the research, just ask. We'll do it. We'll gladly talk about it. It's what we do regularly anyway. So it gives us an opportunity to share something that we're really passionate about. If you found any value in today's episode or simply enjoyed it, we'd be grateful if you supported the show by visiting ethanaturals.com for all your botanical needs. Don't forget to follow our podcast page to stay updated on new episodes at Etha Live Fully Podcasts. You can find us on YouTube now, so if you're listening on Spotify or whatever it is, you can also go to YouTube and see us in all of our non-glory. And today's topic was brought to us by you guys. You guys asked for a breakdown of this research, and so hopefully we did a service and did it right. We'll link it in the description so you guys can take a look at the study yourselves and ask us any questions. We'll answer them. Until next time, I'm Victor.
I'm Alexander.
And I'm Nicole.
As always,
live fully
and thrive.